Dei pazzi all'amor tetro che lacrime distilla. Interesting phrase to understand the consonantic balancement in a verse, the way a librettist thinks of it. The only actual spelled double L in the phrase is in distilla, but you understand how important the doubling is, although it's not written, from the fact that you have two more doublings of the L in the phrase. L'amor che lacrime distilla. So if you do all three of them, the verse is balanced. There is an alliteration, a poetic alliteration, and the verse is musical. Dei pazzi all'amor tetro che lacrime distilla. So you have all of the and it makes sense. And that's the way they wrote it. And that's how important syntactic germination as a mandatory doubling is in poetry. E la che la distilla. Arrenditi is from the verb arrendersi, which is a reflexive verb. Watch out, especially if a verb is particularly long, or if you spot that the word is proparoxyton, that the accent falls on the pre-penultimate syllable, or even on the pre-penultimate syllable. It's really rare, but like levatelo, levarsi il cappello. Levatelo is composed of three words. Leva, the imperative form, second person singular of levare, leva. Te, pronoun, lo, complement, object. So if I tell you levatelo, for example, il cappello, take it off. Leva, te, lo, te to yourself, it, lo, levatelo. But levatelo is still one word that you have to find somehow. So the point is, in verbal forms, when you see that the verb is really long and that towards the end you have a lot of suffixes that you can spot as suffixes that address the person, like dimmelo, arrenderti. The verb is arrendere, but there is a reflexive form, arrendersi. Eliminate as many suffixes that you can spot, that you can recognize are suffixes, and find the simplest verbal form that you can find.
The Z and when to use the S. So like
you go to a dictionary, because as I was telling you, ozio, pranzo, in Latin, if it in Latin was a T, you have a ts. Ts, ozio, otium, ozio, prandium, pranzo. So it depends from the derivation in Latin, blah, 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 blah. The answer is you check it on the dictionary. The Z is always to be checked. It's always a strong sound, unless it's an S, intervocalic S, like in musetta, 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 which is a simple Z, Z. That's the only simple Z sound, and it's spelled with an S, by the way. But whenever it's spelled with a Z, with an actual Z, it's always a strong sound. And to know if it's a Ts or a Z, you have to check the dictionary. There's no other way. Treccani, in spite of the fact that it's a monolingual encyclopedia, vocabolario, and also a dictionario of synonymi and contrari, and that's where you usually will find the orthoepy, although you will find it in IPA.
I was always looking at the vocabolario.
It's in order to have as little signs as possible, because once you know that there are very few open I's and O's, you know by default that all others are closed. So if you don't see the sign of the opening, you know that you have to close. But I take for granted that you know what the E and the O sound like. You are still getting acquainted with the sounds of the closed E and the closed O. It's best if you put also together with an A on top of the open A and the open O. You also put an E on top of the closed E and an U on top of the closed O. But once you have figured out the sound, as little signs you have, the cleanest the score, the better. Less things to remember.
Like when I was looking at Treccani, and I wanted to see like Ben had a accent grave, so I know that's open, and they, so it's closed, so it had the other accent like that.
Of course, that's the standard notation of the tonic accents in Italian, although in normal Italian they are not spelled unless they fall on the last vowel, like perché or però and so on. My way to notate the diction is due to the ease in singing, because whenever a singer reads the vowel A, they go they would do weird things. In order to keep the legato and the homogeneity of the registers, instead, if they conceive the open A and the open O as A, And if they match the closed E to the E and the closed O to the U, it's much better for singing. It's my thing. I mean, I advise it in my book because it's way smarter for singing. It's also faster. If you look at an A, you'll know what to do. Otherwise, is that a grave accent or an acuto accent? You know, when you're singing, it's much faster for the singing eye, both visually and as a singing position, as a singing placement. When you really learn how to place an open A and an open O on your most comfortable A, never one beat that goes backwards. They will be all equal. They will all have the same throat feeling. They will be all comfortable, because especially the open A is a tricky vowel.
Yeah.
And it's a tricky vowel because you see it spelled this way and you think of the closed one and you never really know where to place it. Whereas if you see A, bam. So that's the answer.